Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Honest Youth Pastor YouTube channel, the channel that helps believers use biblical discernment in all aspects of life. Today, we're going to be talking about something that little bit concerning, I suppose, from a Christian perspective. I wanted to share these with you, just so you're aware. Here's the thing I want to state, like right from the get-go. Obviously, you want to treat everyone with respect and with dignity, and you want to do that from a Christ-centered way, right? So our lives have been totally changed by Christ. Our minds and hearts are being renewed to be more like Him, and we need to reflect that. But at the same time, there's a way to stand on Scripture and do that at the same time and confront the world and say, hey, this isn't right. And as a Christian parent, I'm not going to get behind it. So one of the things you've probably seen, if you follow somebody named Billboard Chris on Twitter, he posts quite a bit of videos in regards to kind of a lot of the picketing or a lot of the things surrounding transgenderism. And I forget exactly what particular hospital that he posted a bunch of videos from, training videos from, and they kind of blew up. And today, while I was going through Twitter, I accidentally ran across an account. I got to find it real quick because I don't have it pulled up for you. But the account is called Expose Them is what the account actually is. And you can find the account on Twitter. And they had posted a couple of videos. I will actually share the links to these videos that we're going to see here today, just so you're aware that they're there, right? So as we do on this channel, we want to approach everything from to try to help you guys use discernment from a biblical perspective. So what I want to do is show these videos real quick. Now, there's a lot more videos than the ones I'm going to show you, but these are training videos for medical physicians, specifically dealing with kids, right? So there's a lot of these videos that are on this sort of training site that have to do with adults, and we could have a separate conversation about that. But these are specifically to do with kids. So we're going to jump over to the reaction screen really quick. And we're going to watch through this video. This is a very short training video. I've actually cut it down just to the conversation part. The longer versions are on their site. Obviously, they own the copyright to all of these. I'm just trying to give you a demonstration here. So this particular scene that is set up before is these people go to, or this dad and this, it looks like a girl, but it's actually a boy, go to this doctor. He fills out the form, fills out the medical sheet, and he puts that, it's a big question mark because apparently his kid has told him he doesn't know what he is. Or, well, we'll see. Let me pause it. We'll just watch it and then we'll react to it. So
So, Sam, I'd like to ask you a few more questions if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Can you tell me, do you feel like a boy, like a girl, like both, or neither? And there's no right answer.
Okay, so really quick, right? So I'm just going to interrupt because these videos, to be truthful with you, I'm just like, what in the world is this training video about, right? So it's supposed to be training medical physicians to be more inclusive to their patients. But my first question is, why do they even need to ask? Let me get this over here. Why do they even need to ask this question? Unless it has something to specifically do with a medical procedure, which even in that case, you would have to actually know the actual gender of the child, but it doesn't seem like it's anything pertinent. But automatically the doctor is trained to say, hey, you a boy, you a girl, you neither. And then he ends with, there's no wrong answer. Now, I'm going to set this scenario up as if you were a Christian parent sitting in this room. At that point, I'm like, I think we're done. Right? I think I'm going to get a different doctor. Now, let me explain to you that whole thought process. Studying church history, by the way, if you go back, what you will find is the early Christians actually started not going to Roman hospitals specifically because in the Roman hospitals, they had priests and prophetesses from other different cults and different religions within Rome that would be in there to specifically give prayers to different gods for the different patients. And the Christians say, we can't go to those hospitals because we don't believe in those gods, and we're not going to let you pray over us in those gods' names. So we're just not going to these hospitals. In a very similar way, obviously this is not identical, but I think there's enough correlation here that if I go into a hospital as a Christian and I start hearing this, we're done. Okay, we're done. You're not asking my kid their gender, their preferred anything. We're done, especially when you tell them there's not a right or wrong answer. Okay, now let's see what happens here, and then we'll talk about it.
He keeps telling me that he's a girl and that he doesn't like boy stuff. So we let him go by the name of Sam, which I like because it could be for a boy or for a girl. I don't know, I think he just wants to be like his big sister.
What is wrong with this dad? This is my thing, right? Now, I know this is a total like bad acting, computer-based learning training that they're giving these doctors. But if a dad is actually acting like this, bro, what is wrong with you? I just don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to accommodate, my 8-year-old. Do we really think 8-year-olds can make decisions? Like obviously we're training them and helping them make, we're going to get to verses here in a minute about that. But the idea as a parent, as a father, he's supposed to be helping his kid navigate the world well. Now, clearly he's not a Christian dad, but especially as a Christian dad, you're supposed to help your kids navigate the world well from a biblical perspective. That's your job. And in this training video, right, this is more about the doctor than it is about the dad. But this dad here is just like, this dad is frustrating me to death. Because he's like, I just don't know. Let's keep going.
Dad, I told you, I'm a girl.
I'm sorry, honey. This is hard to understand.
I'm sorry. I know you're 8, but please tell me what to do. Are you kidding me? This is the same dad that's like, hey, I'm going to take your iPad. I don't want okay, here's your iPad back. Dude, grow a backbone. Be a parent.
Thank you for sharing that. I would like to ask Sam. So what do you say?
See, thanks for sharing that. I don't want to talk to you, the adult. I'm being trained to talk to your kid and ask your kid specifically their gender preference, right?
Sam.
I'm a girl.
How long have you known you're a girl?
I don't know, but a long time.
So when we're talking about you...
The same amount of time that I figured out I liked Scooby-Doo snacks, right? I mean, you're 8.
Would you like for us to say he or she?
She.
Okay, thanks.
In this scenario, the registration form provided an opportunity for the parent to share his child's name, pronouns, and gender identity.
Okay, so that's the end of that video. But the whole workthrough, the whole workthrough of that video is training the physician. That's the whole point of these videos, right? To train the physicians to specifically interact with people, in these cases that we're going to be looking at today, children and teenagers, in a way that draws that out of them, right? So the lead up to that video, there was actually a form that the guy filled out, and it had preferred pronouns on the sheet, and it had he, she, non-binary on the sheet. And maybe I've just not been to the doctor recently, or maybe my doctors are just incredibly conservative that I go to, but that's not on the sheet. So red flag automatically there. But here's the second video. Let's go ahead to this second video. And this is a doctor with a teenager. Listen to the wordage.
I'm asking all of my teenage patients this. Had your mother step out of the room because what we discuss here is confidential and private?
Okay. So yes, you want to give your kids some privacy and leeway in certain things, right? But until you're out of my house, I have a responsibility to help guide you. So if a doctor says, hey, I need you to leave the room because I need to talk to your child in private, my first question is, there ain't nothing you're going to tell my kid that I don't need to know in this room. And I know there's probably, I guarantee you there's people that disagree with me on that, but I'm the one caring for my kid. You're here to help. You're the professional in regards to medical care, helping me take care of my kid, especially if they're sick. But there's nothing you're going to tell my kid that I don't need to hear, okay? And there shouldn't be anything that my kid can't tell me to where I got to leave the room, okay? So here we go. He asked the parents to leave the room, so that's the first instruction that the doctors are being given. Tell the parents to leave the room so the kid and you can have some private time.
But as your parent, she is able to look at your medical record for whatever we put on there.
Good.
Okay? So what we discuss here, we can just talk about it. And there are certain parts that if you want me to just make note for myself, then I will make that note. But otherwise, it will be in your record. And if it's...
See, so it's if you don't want other people to know, if there's some great grand secret about your gender that you don't want anybody else to know, I'll note that down. It'll be between you and me. Again, this is a minor. Okay, do you this is a minor he's telling that to. That is, he's saying, look, like there's a medical record that will be available to your guardian. But if there's something you want to keep secret about, anything you don't want them to know, I got my own little personal notepad over here and I'll take that down. You got to tell nobody else. Is that not a problem for anybody else?
Ask for, they will have access to that. So I want to ask you about your gender identity. Are you comfortable having that conversation right now?
Sure.
All right. Would you say that you identify as a boy, girl, transgender, or non-binary, or maybe some other gender?
Again, didn't this whole thing used to be, hey, if somebody wants to tell you, they can. Like that was the idea initially, right? When this whole conversation started happening in a more public manner a year, 2 years ago, 3, 4, right? I mean, in recent history, right? It was always, hey, if somebody tells you, refer to them this way. That was just be respectful. Now you're just blatantly asking them for apparently no reason. There's no reason given for either of these videos where this doctor needs to know this at all.
Actually, I don't really identify as a boy or a girl. I know some people look at me and think I'm a boy, but it doesn't really bother me.
Awesome. I'm glad it doesn't bother you. That's really good. So for our system, I'm going to go ahead and put other, if that's okay with you, because I feel like from what you're telling me, being specific about...
By the way, I'm not a medical physician. Okay, clearly. But how is that going to help anybody diagnose anything? Right? The whole purpose, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, medical professionals, but the whole reason I have a chart in front of me as a doctor is so I can look and say age, weight, gender, and I can assess from those things, especially previous medical issues. I can look at that really quick and get a snap summary of what could possibly be wrong. If I pull up a chart and I don't have a clue what your gender is, that puts some things mysteriously in the dark for me that I'm not sure. And now I've got to look at you and I've got to assume some stuff, or I've got to ask again because somebody put other down. This isn't helping the medical care, right? That's the whole reason for doctors, to care for you in a medical way for your health.
Girl, boy, transgender, or non-binary doesn't fit. Is other okay?
Yep.
All right. And we can have further conversation about your gender identity if you'd like, now or maybe at another time, but we can talk more about it to help you kind of navigate what that looks like for you.
Okay, that sounds great. It might be different the next time I come in to talk to you.
Because, it just is so fluid. It is so fluid that next week it'll be one thing and it could possibly be something the next. Because that makes a whole lot of sense.
Awesome. Sounds good.
In this scene, the clinician did several things well. First, he politely asked the adolescent patient's parent to leave the room so he can have a private conversation with.
Okay, so that's where the video cuts off. So a few things we want to look at, right? Now, again, this is from a Christian perspective. If non-Christian parents are taking their kids to the doctor and doing things, we're operating a whole different planet over here. But I just want to address this video specifically to Christian parents, right? Helping us use biblical discernment to navigate life. Okay. So here's the reality. These videos, in some instances, are being used to help to train doctors in how to deal with adolescent patients. So if you have kids, they're being trained in how to deal with your children. In this last video we watched, they're being trained to ask you to leave the room. And they got little notepads on the sign taking separate notes that you don't get to see. That's a problem. Okay? That's an issue for me. One, that you just have to leave the room and some secret talk going on here. Secondly, that you're asking questions that don't need to be asked for this medical thing at all. And 3, that you got your own little secret notepad on the side that nobody gets to see at all. No one else, just you. Okay, that's a little creepy, but whatever. The first video, the 8-year-old is dictating the entire conversation. Both adults aren't allowed to say anything. And if they do, they have to, the guy in the video basically is like, oh, he's just cowering. Okay, whatever you say, right? This is crazy. All right, let's look at the Bible, right? So there's a lot of verses in Proverbs that we're going to pull from here, but just a couple. First of all, as a Christian parent, Psalms 127 verse 3 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward." This idea being that as a believer, we understand that children are a gift given to us to steward well. God has given us kids to raise up, to disciple well, to point toward Him, to disciple them. They're a gift. They're a heritage. And one of the parts of taking care and discipling your kids is directing them and teaching them how to think well and navigate the world from a biblical worldview. So Proverbs 13:24 says this, "Whoever spares the rod hates his son. Whoever loves him is diligent to discipline him." Now, to be fair, this verse has sometimes been misused in order to be like, yeah, beat your kid. No. Discipline your child, right? That means if he's going hog wild over here, you say, "Hey, son, come over here," right? Sit down. Time out. There's consequences for your actions. You don't get to go crazy and there be no results from this. It says that if you actually let your kids just go crazy out here, just making all the decisions on everything, you actually hate your kids. If you don't discipline them, if you don't direct them well, if you don't guard their hearts, you hate them, is what the scriptures say. Right? Proverbs 23 verse 13 says, "Do not withhold discipline from your child. If you strike him with the rod, he will not die." Now, contextually, this is very important. It's pointing back to a text in Deuteronomy where it says if you have a rebellious child that won't listen, take them before the elders and explain what's going on. And there's actually in Deuteronomy, it's a very messy passage that I didn't make time to actually go through and exegete, but the whole point that here is saying if you discipline them, it'll actually save their life. In reference to Deuteronomy, literally, in this case, if you discipline them, it actually helped them go through life better, right? We all know kids that weren't disciplined well, were let just free-range children that have ended up in a lot of trouble, some of them in jail. The point is, Scripture is saying, as a parent, you have been given the gift of children from the Lord. Steward them well, discipline, disciple them, help them navigate life. That first video we watched, there was no helping navigate life. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 5. "A fool despises his father's instructions, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent." Right? This idea of saying there's this expectation that your parents, specifically your father, is going to give you instruction. And the scriptures say in Proverbs that if you don't listen to that instruction, you're actually being a fool. Because what your father is supposed to be doing and what is assumed being happening here in Proverbs is that he's giving you good instruction for your bad behavior to get you back on a right path, and not listening to them, right, is actually incredibly foolish. Because it's actually very prudent, very wise, very helpful to you to heed the words of your parents in order to live rightly. Again, the assumption here is that your mother, your father specifically here in Proverbs, is doing what he's supposed to do, not like the dad in the first video we watched, but actually he's telling you no. You can say whatever you can say you feel like a girl, boy, but you're a boy. You were created that way, and that is the way we're going to do this. Right? Now, again, lovingly but firmly, this is directing and discipling people in a world view, and it's your child. Okay? You're responsible for them. You will stand before God one day about how you did this well according to Scripture. Take heed of that. Now, there's a passage, anytime I get to preach on parenting or specifically like Father's Day or whatnot, we go here, and it's actually Deuteronomy chapter 6, we'll start at verse 4, just so we have a little bit of context. And it says this: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk to them when you sit in the house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on your doorpost of your house and on your gates." Now, obviously, this is a specific situation for Israel that God's telling them, but this principle is something that Israel carries with them throughout their time, right? We see this is a lot of the way that the word of the Lord is passed down verbally through teaching. This whole point being is that as Christian parents, right, you know the word of the Lord. And as Christian parents, you are supposed to walk with your children, discipling, teaching them, telling them, like, this is what God commands. This is how God has designed humanity. He created us male and female. He has these dictates and designs that are supposed to be lived out well. Yes, the world is broken. Yes, there's a lot of sin. Yes, there's a lot of people around here teaching other things, but this is how we are living. Now, again, does that guarantee your kids will grow up Christians? No, it does not, but it does mean as a Christian parent, you have a duty to disciple well, teach well. And it says right here, you shall talk to them when you sit in the house. When you are hanging out, you are continually teaching them about the Lord. Hey, that TV show, this is how we view it, or we just turn it off because we're not going to stand for that nonsense, right? Or when you walk by the way, right? When you're hanging out, when you're walking through, like one of the examples I give all the time, like when we walk through the aquarium and you see all of these animals, all of these amazing creatures, look what God made. Look how creative our Lord is, right? It's this continually directing them back to God is a creator. God is over all. Look what he did. Look how he operates. It says when you lie down, right? When you're in bed or when you're going to bed, you're constantly reminding your children about who God is, how he operates, and not only are you telling them this, you're living this out. And when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. I cannot emphasize enough, and look, I'll just be totally transparent with you. I'm not great at this. I am continually learning how to do this better. But God's decree for his people, specifically in Deuteronomy, and a wonderful principle to translate into situations like we just watched, is the fact that doctors, some of them, are being trained to do the sorts of things we saw in these videos. And with that being a reality, as Christian parents, you have to realize that and say, how am I going to function and operate and teach my kids with this being the possibility of what happens when I walk into a doctor's office with my kid? Gone are the days where you're just like, here, hey, just watch this show. Hey, let's just go to the doctor. Hey, let's just, listen to this conversation. No. You have to have a mindset like is set forth here in Deuteronomy chapter 6. This idea that, look, the Lord has commandments, and as a parent, I am continually teaching my children these commandments when we're walking by the way, when we're sitting at the house, when we're lying down, when we're all the time we're doing this. Why? Because they're constantly being discipled everywhere else as well. They're being discipled by the music they listen to, the television shows they watch, the influencers they follow, all of it. Their friends' parents, it's everywhere. And it's not like, oh no, put them in a bubble. It's just simply saying they're going to interact with it. Give them a biblical worldview in order to do that well, right? Allow them to ask questions to you. Have that openness to where they can. Hey, Billy has 2 moms. What is that? Okay? That is going to be a conversation that you're probably going to have with your kid. Just given the cultural climate that's going on, given the shows that they might come across, right? You're going to have that conversation. Do you have the worldview, right, to explain that to them? Because you're going to. And what we saw in these videos here especially is that you may even have doctors and medical professionals sitting in front of you that have been trained in a particular sort of way that you're going to have the boldness to say, no, stop, we're done. I'm going to find another doctor. I'm going to go somewhere else. We're done. Are you going to be able to do that? Again, you can do that very lovingly, very gently, very much like, hey, we're believers. This is not how we function or operate. This is not our worldview. Because the reality is that's, at least in some places, how doctors are being trained to operate with patients given the cultural climate that we're in. So that being the case, one thing that I would urge you to do, well, here's a few things I would urge you to do. The first thing being this: be in the scriptures, reading them daily, praying for wisdom to operate well, and to be kind of pushed by the Spirit a bit when you need to have those conversations or do the things that Deuteronomy 6 says to do. Secondly, have that open relationship with your kids to where they know they can ask you questions and they know that you are going to give them honest biblical answers. And 3, if you know medical professionals in your life, if you know doctors or RNs or nurses or anybody in the medical field, ask them how you can pray for them if they're a believer as well. I know a couple. We did a whole episode on this on the Babbling Pastors podcast because there's some people that me and Rob know that are working in the medical field that have already had to come across some of the situations we saw in these videos at the beginning. It's just the reality of their profession now. So 1, be in the Word. 2, be in prayer. 3, develop these conversations with your kids so that you can have open, honest dialogue with biblical perspectives. And 4, pray for those that you know that are believers that are in the medical field that are going to have to navigate this depending on where they're at and what they're doing, because they're going to need wisdom as well. So guys, if you found this helpful, make sure you leave a like. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And if you disagree with me or agree with me, make sure you comment below. All of those things help the algorithm get this out to more people. And I will include the links to these videos that I got from that Twitter account down below as well as tag that Twitter account so that so you can go follow them if you so choose to do that. Because without accounts like this, I would have never come across these videos. So they're doing a work out there that that I think probably needs to be done just so we're all aware of what's going on. So thank you. Make sure you hit that subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.